You can leave the parable up on the screen. I'll get to it in a second. So, in John chapter 10, verse 10, Jesus says, I came that you would have life and have it abundantly. What is an abundant life, and how do we live it? Well, that's a sermon for another time because we have something else on the screen. It's a sermon for another time, but the question of what's an abundant life leads me to the scripture today, and it's Matthew 25, 14 through 30, and it's the parable of the talents. And it's kind of long, but we're going to read it. And I'm going to read it from here. For it is as if a man going on a journey summoned his slaves and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. The one who had received the 5 talents went off at once and traded with them and made 5 more talents. In the same way, the one who had the 2 talents made 2 more talents. But the one who had received the 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. Then the one who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 more, saying, Master, you handed over to me 5 talents. See, I've made 5 more. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many. I will enter into the joy of your master. And the one with the 2 talents also came forward and said, Master, you've handed over to me 2 talents. See, I've made 2 more. His master said, Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You've been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many. Enter into the joy of your master. Then the one who had received 1 talent also came forward, saying, Master, I knew that you were a harsh man, reaping where you did not sow, gathering where you did not scatter seed, so I was afraid. I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here's what's yours. But the master replied, You wicked, lazy slave, didn't you, that I reap where I did not sow and gather where I did not scatter? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and on my return I would have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one with the 10. For to all those who have more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. As for this worthless slave, throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. So I like to think about and talk about relationships. And today we're going to talk about our relationships, but we're also going to talk about our abilities, our resources, our gifts. What stands out to me about the master and his servants, to one he gave 5, to another 2, and to another 1, each according to his own ability. So that our master had a relationship with his servants or his slaves. The first 2 are living an abundant life. They've been working alongside him, using the gifts, using their abilities, their resources, what God has given them. I have a feeling they're really feeling fulfilled. But we know this, that what better way to form a relationship is to work. What better way to form a relationship with Jesus is to work with him. You know, we all have jobs. I used to have a job, but we all are around people, and how we get to know, how we become friends, how we become acquainted with one another is when we work together, and it's the same with Jesus. The more we work with him, the more we join him in his work, the more, the closer we're going to become. So can we picture those first 2 servants and their abundant life, and I guess I think about this when I was thinking about the working and joining Jesus. I think about Sakahachi, And all my Sakahatchee buddies are here today. That's fabulous. But I think about Sakahatchee and those mission trips, and I know Jamie and I have talked about how we miss it, and I know Martha misses it, and Stephanie, because it's a time to get out of yourself. When I was there that week, totally out of yourself, only focusing on Jesus, only focusing on his mission, only focusing on the plan that he had for us. So I got a feeling that maybe that's how those servants felt. They felt fulfilled. There's nothing like that feeling of satisfaction and of knowing that you are doing something, you and Jesus are doing it together. So, I guess we've come back. If you've been in the congregation for a while, you've heard us come back and give our testimonies and of how we transformed houses and how we transformed ourselves during that week. And we had a lot of funny stories too, most of involving roaches, but it was a fabulous. Actually, we had this one house where the funny story dealt with roaches, a turkey carcass, and a blender. So. Ask Jamie about that one. So, but anyway, there's nothing like the feeling, and I think you've all had it. If you're doing something, working with Jesus in and around, you know how that feels. You know that fulfillment. So our first two servants have that feeling. I think he's given them according to what their abilities were. But we have the third servant. He has a relationship with his master because he gave him one talent, and he hasn't given up on him. Even though he's not fully joined him in his work, he gave him one talent. So I look at the relationship like this. I think there's the sun, or the S-O-N, sun, but we're orbiting around that sun. And we're right here, and we're close enough to feel the warmth of the sun, close enough to feel the energy and to continually be energized and warm. But then we have, some of us are out here, not far enough away to be cold, but far enough away to feel some warmth, not having to really do anything, just being comfortable and satisfied, knowing Jesus, but not being up here close enough to really get energized. So sometimes I've been there. I've been out here, I've been this one, but think about that. Think about where you are in your relationship. So let's see what happens now. So the master goes away, he divides up all he has. We've talked about that. He gave one 5, gave one 2, gave the other guy 1. Our first two servants were really enthusiastic. They went out, and the one with 5 doubled. The one with 2 doubled. They went out. Maybe they stepped out in faith. Maybe they invested. Perhaps they took a risk. And sometimes you've got to do that if you're going to do something new. But they probably tried something new. We don't know, but in our case, using our talents, we know when we have to take a risk, or we know when we want to try something new. Our third comfortable servant dug a hole. Maybe he was afraid. He said he was kind of afraid of the master. Maybe we're like the third servant. Maybe he was satisfied. Maybe he was just comfortable being out here a little bit, feeling the warmth, but not too close. So the master returns, and he rewards the first two, doubling their talents. Or the first one, he doubles their talents. I'm getting mixed up here. Yeah. So he comes back. He doubles their talents. The master, or the third servant's still out there. But have you ever known people in your life who have more hours in the day than you? You wonder how they get it all done. especially moms and dads with kids. I can think of an example of this guy at the theater. I'm not sure. I don't think he ever sleeps. He builds sets, and then he goes to work at the Asheville airport. I mean, he has more hours in the day than I do. And I think we all know people like that. And I think in our congregation, we know people like that, in our church family. And you know who they are. The people that you go, how do they do it? You know, I'm exhausted. How do they do it? Well, here's how they do it. In verse 29. Verse 29. For to everyone who has shall more be given, and he shall have abundance. For everyone who has, everyone who is taking what God has given them, everyone who is using that ability, that talent, that gift, whatever it may be, you're going to get more. The more you have, and it's a blessing, the more you have, the more he blesses you with. And he blesses you with opportunities. So where do you want your relationship to be? So I look at the community meal when to give that as an example. God presented this family 20 years ago with the opportunity to feed people. So we stepped out in faith, and we did it, and we fed people. And then that wasn't enough. He said, you've done a good job there. Here's something else. And he gave us gifts in kind. And Lisa set us up in that and with gifts in kind. And for a while we were United Way agency, and we shopped at the Walmart Return Center. And when that became not really profitable for us, they didn't have the things we needed. God provided, and we pay for it ourselves, or you pay for it. Our donations, our congregation, our family pays for that part of it. But he said, okay, you're doing good with this. You're feeding people. Now you're giving them toiletries and toilet paper and diapers. I'm going to give you something else. How about food boxes? So now we are successful in our food boxes. More than 100 were given out yesterday. So what's next? And we need to think, look around, what's our next opportunity? Because he's going to give it to us. He's going to present it because we have been faithful in the 3 opportunities that he gave us. For to everyone who has shall more be given, and he shall have an abundance. Will have an abundance. So yesterday, you made 100 food boxes, and we set up the stuff in the building, and our Friday pickleball people go over and they pack the toiletry bags for us, which is really fabulous. But they packed 100 bags, 100 food boxes. So what happens to the third person, the third servant in our story? He had 1 talent. God was still thinking about him. God was still knowing his abilities, so he gave him a talent. He could have taken that talent, and he could have doubled it or whatever, but he chose not to. And the master cast him away. So I don't think we're going to cast a lot of our 1 talent or our comfortable people, which I'm one sometimes. I don't know that I'm going to be cast away, but I'm going to be floating out there where it's cold, and I don't like that. So if you feel that you're in that comfortable orbit, use your 1 talent. Join God in his work and watch him open up new opportunities. I do want to talk a minute about the community meal yesterday. How many meals did we cook? Did you guys cook yesterday? We cooked 450 meatloaves and scalloped potatoes. We cooked 450 meals, and if you don't know, the meals come from Stouffer's, and it's those big pans, like we had pans of meatloaf and pans of scalloped potatoes till we ran out of potatoes, and then people got meatloaf and peas. canned peas, but it's free. But anyway, so that 450 meals, Martha packed, and her crew packed 100 food boxes. The pickleball people put together the 100 bags. And then yesterday, the people came, and I tell you, out there in that building was crazy. So when Hans and Cooper and Mason and Angela and Cheryl, I mean, we were the ones who were out there. We were kind of shorthanded yesterday. But anyway, Hans lifted up that door, that garage door, and there's just this sea of humanity. And we make them sign, they have to sign in to get a box. That used to be a United Way thing, but we kept it going just because it makes you accountable. So they're signing in, they're getting their box, they're getting their bag, they're getting their diapers, all these people, and then a lady fainted. So then the big fire truck came. So then we had all these people, the big fire truck, and then the ambulance. I think she's probably okay, I guess. Is she okay? Well, they took her away, so I'm sure she's okay. But anyway, so we had, this was chaos, and people, can I get a bag for my sister? Can I get it? It's that way every time. But it was just crazy, and then it was like it was over. And we look around, and we maybe have 4 or 5 boxes left, a couple of bags, and I looked at my phone, and it was 3:24. So the meal goes from 3 to 5. But so this isn't starting at 3, and at 4 we kind of finished giving out bags. In 24 minutes yesterday, with the big fire truck, and some people kind of squabbling, a couple of women were kind of squabbling amongst themselves. But anyway, we gave away probably 95 boxes of food and, I don't know, bags, but we ran out of food, so we're putting Angela and Cheryl were putting boxes together from what was on the pantry shelf, which is now bare, so we'll be talking about that someday. But the shelf, they were just throwing stuff in the bags and in the boxes, and we were scrambling. You got a roll of paper towels and 2 bars of soap because we were out of everything else. But the last lady that came, which was probably about 3:45, so we were scrambling to put a box, and she said, "Do y'all have any Simon, it said. But anyway, do you all have any salmon?" It was like, please, it's not Ingalls. And we said, "No, we're sorry, we don't have any salmon." But anyway, she left, and she didn't take her box, so I guess we weren't good enough for her, even though it was free. But so that gave us some joy. We thought that was pretty funny. And we'll be using that phrase for a long time. Do y'all have any salmon? But when I was thinking about this last night, there's a verse in chapter 25, verse 40 in Matthew that says, I have it underlined here, "Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it to one of these brothers of mine, even the least of them, you did it to me." That's what we did yesterday. Anytime, anything you do for someone else, you're doing it for him. And it makes me a little choked up now because that was our Sakahachi thing. We used to say at night when we finished the day and having our worship, "Where'd you see Jesus today? Where'd we see Jesus yesterday?" In all those faces that came to us for a box of food, even the crabby woman who wanted some salmon, where did you see Jesus today? So that's another thing. When you're joining him in his work, and the people that you interact with, you see Jesus. And you need to look for that because he's there in all of us. Maybe a little further away, maybe a little down, but Jesus is there. So, y'all got a yellow sticky note. Everybody get a sticky note? If you didn't get a sticky note, Hans will bring you one. What I want you to do, and all the pens work because we checked them yesterday. What I want you to do on your sticky note is I want you to write down one gift or one talent, one ability, one resource, one thing that you have that you can give to Jesus, that he can take and he can use. One thing that you can do to join him in his work. The ushers are going to collect, there's a basket, here's a basket for the choir. The ushers are going to collect your sticky note. You don't have to write your name down. Nobody's going to call you, tell you have to do something. You're not going to, but I was just going to say, think about what your talent is or your ability. But when you have to write it down, that's a commitment. So think about your commitment. And we're not going to read these. We're not going to, but I want you to put in the basket your commitment to Jesus right now. There's a lot going on out here. How can we join him? What can you do to join him? What have you got? What can you do that Jesus can? Bacon for Jesus. Cheryl was stacking cans the other day, and we said, stacking cans for Jesus. What can you do? I mean, you have time. Everybody's got some time. And if you don't know what you want to put down, put your paper in there, but Jesus is going to let you know. But I just think when we write it down, then we're committed. You know? And don't take too long. We don't want the Baptists to beat us to Hairtown for lunch. You can fold it. Nobody's going to read them. I'm not going to read them out loud. Do you guys have your? Have I got everybody's? Oh, pass Ted's basket, Ted. All righty. I'm going to put him on the altar. Talent. Look at all this talent. Can you bring it up so I don't have to step down? It's my knee. Thank you. All right. You know, our church family is about to embark on a new journey. And what gifts, what talents do we have that we can use to strengthen our church, strengthen our place in the community, strengthen our bond with each other? And we've made a commitment. And I'm going to give these to Jesus. Jesus, we thank you for our abilities and our gifts that you have bestowed upon us. Take these things, these commitments, show us where we can use them to join you in your work. Amen.
blessed assurance.